Yeah, I think they did.
You take your mask off.
It doesn't matter.
Wait for it to go online. We good?
All right. All rise, pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, welcome everyone. Do something a little different tonight. I'm gonna do a roll call on who is virtual as far as our administrators. So I'm missing today. We got Mrs. Spade. We got Mrs. Gregory.
Ms. Herbert.
Ms. Herbert.
I'm here.
Ms. Kaniga.
Present.
Mr. Schneider.
Mr. Snyder.
Present.
Our student rep, Ms. Lord.
And our student rep, Ms. Lord.
I am currently treated for action because she's on a call with her little, but she is here.
Okay.
All righty, I say, boy, voice changed a lot. All righty, we're gonna start the meeting off with the educational report. Mrs. Gregory will share LPS goals for the 2020-2021 school year. Ms. Gregory?
So in your packet, she's going to go through and I'm going to change the slides as she talks about them.
Good evening, Russell Westberg. Giving me this opportunity. So, Mr. Bailey, if you will advance the first slide.
Mrs. Spade, can you mute your mic, please? Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Ms. Gregory.
First of all, at Lawrenceburg Primary School, our first objective is we're learning happy learners at LPS. So everything that we do, a lot of times we have to take a few steps back from where everybody else has started with students, and we teach them how to be learners at the primary school. And during this unusual start to our students, I just like to commend our students who've done an amazing job. And the new procedures that we have in practice become part of our normal routine. And for just our routine and procedure to say, okay, everybody mask up and we're headed to the hallway. And that's what the students do. So they've done a really, really good job of that. And we just contributed again to learning how to be a learner and how to be in school. So yeah, we can please touch the next slide. And with that, our students are so excited to just be at school. They have, and that excitement is contagious, but you know, they're excited to see their friends, their teachers, have lunch and recess. And again, have to do a few things different. The picture you see here are them, the way we serve lunch this year. We are doing it in the class. And there's students are eating in the classrooms, and our cafeteria crew has done an amazing job of helping to make that happen. And it's just the way we do it at the primary school this year, and it's been very successful. The next one, please, Mr. Bailey. Another little change for us this year, as the other buildings have as well, and Mr. Simon alluded to this last one. We have 62, there have been some chosen for them to remain virtual. So because we have nobody in our building is an independent learner this year, and at this point, they're operating out being independent learners. We have a teacher at each grade level who is strictly the virtual teacher. In kindergarten, it's Mrs. Renner. In first grade, it's Mrs. Johnson. And in second grade, it's Mrs. Hostetler. And from the pictures, you can see they have multiple devices so that they can see their students and also provide that instruction. You might see a little sign on their door, like the one in the corner, that there's virtual learning happening right now. So please do not enter and them to come and do like get their picture taken if their families chose to do that. In about every 2 weeks, they come to the primary school, their families do, and pick up material that they may need for the next 2 weeks of instruction. Really? We're going to get into talking about the goals that we have. So we have 3 major goals that we're really focusing on at the primary school. Let's go to the next slide. The first goal is our dual language immersion program. And it is hard to believe that we are in our 2nd year of this program, and the entire building, K1 and 2, has a program in each grade level. And that's very exciting news. It's also, so we're continuing with our 1st and 2nd grade. We added our 2nd grade this year. So we've implemented that, and that's gone very well. And this year we've also continued and added that new cohort in kindergarten. Mr. Gailey, would you please go to the next slide? I wanted to show you our DLI teams because we've had to change these up just a little bit due to the COVID-19, but it's been very, very successful once again. In kindergarten, we had hired a teacher from state, but because of the presidential proclamation, that person was not able to come here. So, Mr. Gailey, Mrs. Spade, and myself kind of came up with Plan B, and Michelle Stander, who was our kindergarten IA last year in the kindergarten program, and worked very closely with Acufena Martina Ortega. She really knows what they learned in kindergarten last year. So we've partnered her, and she works with Acufena, and she is delivering instruction to the kindergarten students. She spends 30 minutes in both Ms. Milan and Ms. Gilmore's classrooms in the mornings, working on phonics, calendar, language, arts type instruction in Spanish. And in the afternoon, she does the same thing in both of those classrooms and spends 30 minutes teaching math in Spanish under the direction of Acufena Martina Ortega and what she's learned last year. And it's going very, very well. So you can see a picture of her in the upper left-hand corner teaching, and you can also then see that kindergarten team there in the middle with the 4, Mrs. Kidu, Senior David, Ms. Gilmore, and Ms. Milan. And she also helps, though, in the 2nd grade, is helping provide help and reinforcement with the 2nd grade DLI team. We added, if you can see the lower left-hand corner, Senior Jake Guido. Jake is working with us this year, helping in our 1st and 2nd grade DLI teams. And he's doing a great job there. He is doing some progress monitoring, which we've been working hard to monitor our students and how they're performing and progressing. And it's amazing what our kindergartners, 1st and 2nd graders are already able to do. And in the middle of that, you'll see Senior Nugent, Senior Weedoff, and Mrs. Level, which is our 1st grade DLI team. And then to the far right is our 2nd grade DLI team with Senior Sandra, Senior Martin, and Mrs. Marshall.
She had to rejoin, she just dropped off. Here she. Ms. Gregory, you're muted. Ms. Gregory, you're still muted.
Sorry, folks.
Ms. Gregory, can you hear us? Your mic is muted. She's trying to reconnect now, she says. She lost connection.
Okay, I think I'm back.
There you are.
I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened.
We are on with goal 2.
All right, I apologize for that. I don't know what happened. For goal number 2, at LPS, as you know, we are teaching the foundational skills. So a big one for us is going to be reading, because reading is part of everything that we do in life. So we're working on refining our core reading program, because this is only our second year for that. We're working on an Angel Plus utilization, which is one of the tools that we use to assess students at the beginning, middle, and end of the year. And then we use that data to help us with our RTI correlation and deciding on what group students need to be in to provide them extra instruction in the areas that they may need it. One of the things that we noticed with our reading program, especially kindergarten and first grade, we needed more phonics. We needed more phonics instruction. So the majority of our kindergarten and first grade teachers have all been trained in curriculum exam, which is a very multi-sensory approach to phonics, and it has really proven to be a great instructional strategy and resource for our staff and students. And it also will help us then with that dyslexia law compliance. That is a newer law that all K through 2 students must be evaluated so that we can determine whether that they may be at risk for dyslexia. So Annie, would you go on to the next screen, please?
It's ready for you.
All right, RTI correlation. I talked about that. We use those Angel scores to help us decide which group students need to be in so we can provide extra instruction in the areas that they're weak in. A lot of our students in kindergarten, they may need extra help in learning their letters and the sounds. In first grade, it's learning how to decode those words, and then they start working on fluency. And in second grade, they really focus on fluency and then add comprehension in there. The next screen is just a reminder about the dyslexia law compliance. And so I figure the next one, a lot of people think about the definition of dyslexia is when people reverse their letters, like they turn it backwards. There's a lot more to it. That's a very small percentage of people who actually have that. It's more looking at being able to read fluently and decode words. A lot of students who have struggles in this area are not very good spellers either, so that's kind of a red flag for us as well. The next screen is just the things that we need to do to implement the dyslexia law, and we administer those universal screeners, which ties back to that AIDS web plus that we utilize. From that, we can help to determine the students that are at risk, provide them interventions, and one of the interventions that is great for that is the work healing mix. So it's all kind of tying things together there, and then we'll monitor to those students and their progress and see how they're doing. And if we need to, then we'll be bringing them on for a level 1 or 2 screeners, which by the time they get to that point, they're looking at probably a special education referral. The next screen is just the screener, the dyslexia universal screening that we have. Most of it that we have to do, those 6 components are required. Most of the things that are required, we already do using those in that A12 plus assessment. For a couple of number 5 and 6, we had to find some other assessments that were also state approved, and we did those. And so those are the things that we are doing, and then times of the year that we're doing that. And then the next screen shows the kindergarten and first grade teachers are then taking that information. We've created a worksheet that kind of puts all that into play so that we can take a really good look at those kiddos. And then by the time that they're at the end of first grade, we can really determine if we think that they're at risk for dyslexia, and then again move on to that special education referral if we need to. Our third goal is for social emotional learning. And one of the things that we do here at the primary school, so you can go on to the next screen, please, is minds in motion. And it really helps students to just start to regulate. It really helps students to learn how to cross that midline, which then also carries on into learning how to read and all the other things that we're trying to accomplish at the primary school. Students in kindergarten, they all start their day with this. And then all first and second grade students do this at the beginning of their PE classes, as well as some of the students have that are identified as special education needs. They will have this as part of a sensory diet that they do each day to help them to regulate. The next screen, Ms. Riley, you go on to that. We're always looking at monitoring students' progress and communication and how they can improve that with them, with their teachers, with families, and identifying and utilizing important resources. And part of that goes into positive behavior interventions. Some of the things that we do, we have in each classroom is we have a peace corner for students if they need to just take a break, and there's some strategies there for them that they can utilize to help them to get back to where they're ready to learn. We have received a grant from Baylor, the Baylor grant that they offer. We have some wiggle seats available for some students who need that. So there's a picture of someone using one of the wiggle seats that we do have. And then we also have focused on the zones of regulation. A lot of times the kiddos at our age, they have this feeling that they don't have a vocabulary word to identify what that is. So it breaks it into colors and it helps them to identify how they're feeling, and then we can help them with some strategies of how to get back to that green zone, which is the optimal zone for learning. And we even have some students that we've customized those zones of regulation. Like we have some students that like superheroes, so we have a superhero themed one. We have one for My Little Ponies that they also like. We have been utilizing and finding those resources, really utilize our social worker here in Morgan, our school resource officer, Amy Gray, and our nurse, Gabby Lambert. They really help with mental health resources, with just basic health resources. Also, we offer 87 students who we give weekend snack and food bags that we send home with, just really looking at how we can support those students socially and emotionally so that they're ready to learn the academics that they need. And the last thing is we're excited about the social emotional learning curriculum exploration that the corporation has been doing, as well as what Mr. Snyder talked about last time with the Hope Squad. We've also looked at the Leader in Me and looking at ways that we can help and provide that at the primary level as well. The next slide is, let's go into the next one. Some of the things that also happened this first 10 weeks of school is Officer Brian school bus safety with every class in our building and talked about school bus safety and the importance of that. The next slide is our monthly awards. We had to do it a little differently so we can socially distance, but we are still providing those and recognizing students for math, as math masters, rocket leaders, awesome authors, and principals prize. And finally, talking about that, all that social emotional, we focused on the students, but we felt like we needed to focus on our staff as well. So we have, our final slide is the Woo-Woo Wagon that we do at the primary school. Every Friday, the Woo-Woo Wagon may make its way around the building and provide just a special treat or a pick-me-up for staff. We have had granola bars and waters. We've also had Aqua Focus provided chips and salsa and queso one day for lunch. We've had just different types of incentives and rewards for staff to appreciate them and all the great things that they have done. Any questions about the primary school?
Anybody have any questions? No, thank you very much, Ms. Gregory. That's a good slide. We appreciate it. Thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank everybody there. All righty. Next, Mr. Gailey will recognize staff and students on achievements and accomplishments. Mr. Gailey.
Two of them that I'd like to recognize at this time received an email. One of our high school students, Ashton Rasnick, he is a junior at the high school. He's also in the band. He shared that he made the Cincinnati Symphony Youth Orchestra. So I want to congratulate him for that accomplishment on making the Cincinnati Symphony Youth Orchestra. Also received an email which I shared with the board members from our JAG teacher at the high school, April Pearson, that she wanted to let us know that the Indiana Department of Workforce Development had featured our JAG class in their newsletter on page 12. We shared that out. It had pictures of our seniors explaining why they applied to college, the week of College Go Week, and had some information on that was shared out. So just wanted to thank her for sharing that information. There were pictures in there of our seniors kind of sharing some information on that. That's all I have at this time.
Great, thank you. Next, financial items. Fund report, including cafeteria fund balance. It's informational only. Mr. Gailey.
Going through, you can see some of the information that you have in the fund report. Do want to kind of point out with the school lunch fund, you can see it's in the negative. With that, the $90,000 was transferred, but our September reimbursements have not been accounted for in that number. Two things that I want to kind of point out with that Mrs. Taylor had explained last month. I apologize, Mrs. Taylor is still on vacation. She'll be back next month with us. Is that within there, last month, if you recall, was a split month where we started under the normal school lunch fund rules, and then halfway through the month, then the federal government allowed the free breakfast and free lunch program. So therefore it was a split month. So we had to do our normal reimbursement for half the month, and then we had to then go under the new guidelines for the free breakfast and lunch for the other half of the month. So we don't have or know exactly what that reimbursement is going to be yet. We haven't received that. So those are two things that we will have that I'll share with you as soon as I get that information from Mrs. Taylor when she gets back on Thursday. But I'll answer if there's any other, most of the other funds that you can see there are reimbursables that are federal grants or state grants. But if there's any questions on any of the specific funds, I can answer those.
Mr. Kaniga.
Mr. Gailey, on the understanding, we talked about it last month about the federal program and so on and so forth. There was no idea whether they're going to pay our cost or our sale price on what we're giving.
We're waiting. That's what we're hoping to find out, what that reimbursable is going to be. So we'll know that percentage amount here probably when Pam gets back at the end of this week. She's probably heard, because it usually, as we kind of talked about, usually takes 2 weeks to get that money back to us. So we should hear when she gets back. We did, other good news, we did just receive information today that the USDA did extend the free meals. So as I told you before, it was kind of that until they run out of money with the program or until the end of December, the USDA just extended the free meals through the end of June. So it'll go all the way through our entire school year, which is good news.
Which was my next question. How can they extend it when they don't know what their costs are?
It's federal government. You know how that works.
That's why I'm asking.
But I mean, they sent the memo out to us explaining that they are October 9th, U.S. Department of Agriculture announced that it would extend flexibility to allow free meals to continue to be available to all children throughout the entire 2021 school year. They said.
So hopefully next month we'll have some kind of idea what the reimbursement rate is.
Yeah, I'll know by the end of this week probably that I can email out what that amount is. Sarah was working on that with Pam because we put in for that because, like I said, it was a split month for September. So half of it's going to be under the old guidelines and then half of it will be under the new guidelines. But I'll be able to give both those amounts, what it was for the old guidelines for that half a month, and then what our reimbursement will be under the new guidelines.
One more question. Fund 7941, educational stabilization, that's a new one. I don't recall seeing last month. About 100,000 in the red. I'm sure it's a reimbursement, but what is that for? It's all the way.
Might be a CARES grant, yeah, I see it, I'm wondering if that's one of the CARES grant funds. Yeah, I'm not sure, I can
Okay, no problem.
look and then I can email you tomorrow what that one is.
And also on the federal stimulus, have we applied for reimbursement on that as well?
For some of it we have, yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else with any other questions?
But some of those are under their different, part of it's FEMA and then part of it's CARES. So there's two different ones under the federal, because we received the CARES grant funding, but then also we're looking for reimbursements under FEMA as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, moving on. Approval of claims. I need a motion, please. Mr. Johnson, I need a second. Mrs. Nance. Mr. Gailey.
These might change just a little bit under the accounts payable when Pam comes back on Thursday, just double check, because she's been out all last week. So therefore, she hasn't had a chance to go through line by line item and specifically review them. So it might just be a movement of a fund number of rather it being out of one specific fund or another. She may have to change that, is the only changes. But questions on any of those?
All right, no question?
Just if when they scan them and send them, they can send them in a format so we can see the description of what it's for.
They're working on that, which is that right column, which
Right
2
column,
months,
yeah, right.
2 months ago it was there. CompuTrol's come through because they couldn't print it off for some reason on this newest one. Shannon shared with me today, she's trying to figure out what CompuTrol, they're telling her that it's a new format, she can't do that. So she's trying to figure out a way to do that. So she apologizes for the inconvenience that it was on there 2 months ago. She realized when she saw it wasn't on there this month, and she said she's trying to figure out with CompuTrol why they can't do that anymore. So it's a new format. She's doing her best to try and get through them to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because she shared that with me right before I left the office this afternoon.
All right. All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0, thank you. C, adoption of the 2021 Lawrenceburg Community School Corporation budget, including capital projects and bus replacement plans. I need a motion, please. Mr. Miller. Need a second. Mr. Kniga. Mr. Gailey.
In your packets, if you recall, we've had 3 meetings to kind of review the budget, to be able to advertise for the budget. We had our public hearing also for the budget. So this is to be able to adopt the 2021 budget for the school corporation. Included in this packet is the capital projects as well as the bus replacement plans. You'll notice with the bus replacement plans, we are close. 2022 is when we start to replace our buses. So it'll be that 12 years and we'll start that cycle through replacing buses again. So we're getting close to that. But I'll answer any questions that you have from, we've advertised for it, we've had our hearing for it, and this meeting would be to approve that budget.
Anybody have any questions on this? Bob, did you? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0, thank you. D, approval of appropriation reduction resolution. Say that real fast. I need a motion, please. Mr. Jansen. Need a second. Ms. Rybold. Mr. Gailey.
We do this each year if we have the allowable. This is an appropriation reduction resolution to reduce the appropriations within the education fund, the operations fund, rainy day fund. This would allow us to try to make sure we're capturing the maximum amounts next year within our budgets.
Okay. Anybody got questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0, thank you. Routine business, minutes for approval, the September 14th, 2020 regular session and hearing, and September 28th, 2020 special executive session minutes as presented. I need a motion, please. Ms. Rybold, need a
No.
second.
I need to abstain from voting on the September 14th, so you're gonna have to break this motion up,
Okay,
because I'm going to be abstaining from that, because I wasn't at that meeting.
So you want to do the September 14th
okay,
first,
we're
and then
gonna do minutes for
September
approval of
28th
September 14th, 2020 regular session
and here.
and hearing. I need a motion, please. Mr. Jansen. Need a second? Ms. Nance? Any omissions or deletes? All those in favor, raise your hand. 6, nay. Abstain. 1. Ms. Rybel is abstaining because she was absent. She was somewhere in, I don't know, Kalamazoo. Next, minutes for approval, the September 28th, 2020 special and executive session minutes as presented. I need a motion, please. Mr. Miller, need a second. Ms. Rybel. Anybody, any omissions or deletes on that one? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0, thank you. All right, personnel items, employment, need a motion, please. Mr. Kaniga, need a second, please. Mr. Jansen. Mr. Gailey.
Included in your packet, you have recommendations for personnel. You have Bailey Blackburn, LHS freshman girls basketball coach 2021. Ed Johnson, LHS varsity assistant girls basketball coach 2021, pending background and pre-employment test. Andrew Roberts, LHS assistant wrestling. Nick Roth, LHS assistant wrestling for the 2021 season. Ashley Anderson, assistant swim 2021 season. Carrie Bilodeau, LHS volunteer assistant swim coach 2021 season. Adam Harves, LHS volunteer boys basketball coach, pending pre-employment test 2021 season. Bennett Blas, GMS third shift custodian, effective start date 10/5/20. And then these are our youth volunteer basketball coaches for the 3rd and 4th grade program for the 2021 season. You have Bob Blott, you have Gabe Gill, Trevor Griffin, Josh Liskey, Mike McCreener, Jason Sturgeon, Jason Sullivan, Chris Jones, Marcus Allen. Then you have also Kyle McLean, but his pending background and DCS check. You also have on the next page, Josh McClure, which is also pending DCS background checks. Bryson Cutter, volunteer youth basketball coach, pending background and DCS check. Sean Esther, volunteer youth basketball coach. Noah Seaman, GMS 6th grade basketball coach, the black team for the 2021 season. Corey Elder, GMS 6th grade orange team for the 2021 season. Hannah Sprague, LHS secretary, 9/28/20. I recommend those for approval.
All right, any questions? Mr. Diggy, you got one?
Yeah, Mr. Haley, I noticed, and if I read it correctly, we're gonna have 2 assistant wrestling coaches and no head coach, is that correct?
Head coach was on the,
Was that previous? Because I'm missing all kinds of names you mentioned down below. Once you got past Mike McCrainer and Jason Sturgeon, you mentioned several names that are not on my
it was
list.
updated.
I downloaded it Friday.
Yeah, it was updated after that. She sent an email out saying that she had updated after that. Yeah.
I'd like to see what we have a cutoff date here, because this happens quite frequently. I mean.
Okay, so, I mean, if we set a cutoff date,
But I mean.
which is okay, if we set a cutoff date, then what we're gonna say is those coaches can't participate or do anything until our next board meeting. Which I'm okay with that, as long as you guys are okay with telling our coaches that they can't have others participate until that next board meeting.
Well, I never got the email. I mean, I downloaded it Friday. Sometimes I understand claims and things change.
Yeah.
But you mentioned 5 or 6 names that are not even on the list. So
Right, I mean, did other board members, I apologize, did other board members not get the email with the update?
I got it. Anybody else get them?
I got it.
I got
no problem.
Yeah, I apologize, I mean, we'll try to, yeah, I'll check with her tomorrow to see why you didn't get it.
I'll look in my spam folder.
Okay.
Turn your internet on and off. It might help.
What is that?
All right.
I'm sorry, but
Oh, it's no
on the head
problem.
wrestling coach, but the head wrestling coach, I believe was at our last
last
month
meeting,
meeting. I'll have to double check, but I thought it was, because it was,
Shield.
Mr. Shealy.
Is it Shealy?
Yeah, Mr. Shealy, who was our middle school wrestling coach, that's gonna be the high school wrestling coach.
My apologies.
Like I said, I'll double check that to make sure that it was there.
Anybody else, any other questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. Resignations, informational only, Mr. Gailey.
Included in your packet, you have 4 resignations received and accepted. Angie Ruberg, LHS Attendance Secretary on 9/28/20. Shelby Hoeing, CES Readers Club, sponsor 9/15/20. Anna Baker, LHS Third Shift Custodian, 9/18/20. Trista Clark, LHS Secretary, 9/28/20.
All right, and then transfers and retirement, you can do them all at the same time.
For transfers that have been approved, transfer Tara Roth from LHS Mod Instructional Assistant to CES Mod Instructional Assistant, 10/5 effective date. Diana Sharpshear transfer from GMS Study Skills IA to LHS Attendance Secretary, effective 9/29. Ethan Hall transfer from CES Mod IA to GMS Study Skills IA, 10/12/20 for the transfers. Retirements, they're all here at GMS. Debbie Stegmiller, GMS Cafeteria Manager, 5/31/21. Sorry, that should be 21 instead of 20. Carolyn Hanson, GMS 5-hour cafeteria worker, 5/31/21. Chris Eckstein, GMS head custodian, 5/31/21. Like to thank them for their years of service to the corporation. I know they've been planning for this year over the past couple of years.
Thank you. E, approval of administrative/support staff raises from 2019-2020 school year. I need a motion, please. Ms. Nance, need a second. Mr. Jansen. All right, Mr. Gailey.
You have included in your packet recommendations for administrative support staff raises. And a reminder again, this is for last school year, the way the raises for the schools that match up with state statutes are always from the previous year. So we just finished the evaluations for our teachers and they received their raises a week ago, last Friday. So this would be for the administrative support team then to match up. And those are parallel when you're looking at averages to the teachers.
All right, great, thank you. Anybody have any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0, thanks. Professional travel, informational only.
Can I just share on behalf of, I'm sure I've got part of the administrative team online, but on behalf of the administrative team and support staff, I'd like to thank the board for those raises.
Well deserved, you guys. I mean, everybody does a great job for the corporation. I mean, last year was trying and this year's even a little bit more trying, so we appreciate it too. And thanks all administrators and teachers and aides. Just everybody that works at the corporation. We, on behalf of the board, we appreciate it. Okay, now click on professional.
Sorry.
All right, professional travel, informational only, Mr. Galen.
Questions on any for professional leave?
No. All right, field trips, need a motion. Ms. Rybold. Need a second, Mr. Miller. Mr. Galen.
You have included in your packet one field trip for GMS students. It's usually at the end of the semester. So this is in December, on December 18th, right before Christmas break, to the Greendale Cinemas. They have already worked out with the Greendale Cinemas where they can use the entire cinemas and be able to seat everyone with appropriate spacing. So that is with appropriate spacing to be able to use the entire theater.
Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. Fundraisers, need a motion, please. Mr. Jansen, need a second. Mr. Kniga, Mr. Gailey.
Included in your packet, you have a list of fundraisers I'd recommend for approval. LHS Swim Spirit Wear sales from 10/13 to 11/20. 10:20. LHS cheer team sell popcorn from 10:19 to 10:23. Tigerettes sell Chubby Chico charms from 10:20 to 11:12. LHS girls basketball tumbler sales 10:22. I believe that should be I'd have to look, but I believe it's gonna be the 11:22. So actually only on one day, tumbler sales. LHS swim team swimathon in November with the date to be determined, and CES online donations from 11/1 to 12/1. I recommend those for approval.
All right. Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, 7-0. All right, under old business, approval to support the crossings at Tanner's Creek HOTIF. Need a motion, please. Mr. Johnson. Need a second. Mr. Kniga. Mr. Gailey.
Included in your packets, I do have the questions and answers that the Greendale Redevelopment Commission has provided to the school board. And there's been dialogue back and forth over probably the past 2 months. And we had talked at our last meeting that we would have a vote here at this meeting. And my recommendation would be to approve supporting the crossings of Tanner's Creek HOTIF, given a few parameters that we know that only the property that was discussed between Greendale Redevelopment and the school board would be included in that, only the property that's being developed. I know we talked about we would like to recommend that the TIF not be more than 15 years. We'd like consideration of that. I'm not sure if there's other parameters that the board would like to discuss or like to include within that.
Mark.
Mr. Gailey, excuse me, I spoke with you briefly about this today, but it seemed to, I guess, the draft agreement that Mr. Walton sent out was in our packet.
It's coming up. It's the next item under new business.
And that's why I'm asking. I don't know which one is going to go first here, but if we pass this, what takes precedent? Our agreement or the approval? Because I personally want to see some specific language in there, such as legal description, up to a number of units. What's presented to us as 85 as single unit homes only, which is the regulation for the TIF. No re-TIFing. I know it can't be re-TIFed, but that can change at any time. And then limited to at least a 15-year. But
those are going to be conditions that Greendale Redevelopment would have to agree upon. I don't know that they're going to be agreeable to all those, because I know one of the things they were looking at was the 20 years versus the 15-year TIF.
I could go for the 20-year, but I think there needs to be some language in there that no re-TIFing. I know Al, I know it now it's not able to be re-TIFed, but that's not to say that in future years that could change. And limited it up to 85 houses or 85 units, which was presented to us.
Well,
I just would like more specific language in.
But I don't know if you want to say limited, because we would want more. If they could put more, we would rather have more than less. If you go more than 85 units, you would want more than. I don't know if you want to put at least 85 units or something.
But if they put more units in, are they going to come back asking for more money?
That's a question, I guess, for Greendale Redevelopment.
The print that was provided to us, I don't see any way possible without expanding that TIF that they could go anywhere else and build more houses.
The TIF is for the.
For the 85 houses that.
Al, would you mind coming up to the podium, please? Bob, would you mind bringing it up there real quick? Yeah. And just to make sure that we're correct on this. So what we're talking about, the TIF money we're talking about is for this project here. It's not for any other future projects or endeavors. Correct? I mean, there's no other housing TIF.
The only area that's been talked to us about, and again, they still haven't come to redevelopment and asked us for anything. The area they've come to us and talked about is the area that they own on State Route 1. Now, I think you're talking about just that first phase piece. But all I can tell you is what they've talked to me, and Casey could probably answer that better than I, because I'm not sure exactly what they're asking for we can't address it until we know that the school has approved it, and until we know the zoning has been approved. So it can't even come to us until then, as far as the redevelopment commission.
So you've seen the draft letter that's, the attorneys drafted.
No, I haven't.
Okay,
Did you share that? Were you able to share it with Al or?
Send it to Anthony.
I haven't seen, yeah, and I don't know if Anthony hasn't contacted me about it.
okay, it's pretty, whatever, but make a long story
Pretty
short.
basic.
Yeah, it's pretty basic, it doesn't hold anybody harmless or anything really, but peace of mind. But, I mean, I can agree with Mark on that, you know, if we just get maybe, no retiffing, and you said that wouldn't be a problem, because they can't do it anyway, but we just want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, under current statute, I don't believe that can happen. But to Mark's point,
It can change.
statutes change, especially when it regards to TIF. TIF statutes change annually.
So,
Yeah, I mean, as long as we can put that, I mean, do you see that being a problem? I'm gonna ask you that now before we vote.
I can't answer the question. I mean, I think that's more for the developer to answer.
As far as no more retiffing?
No, the retipping I could.
That's the only thing I'm
The
asking.
area, yeah, the retipping, it's,
So it's no problem.
I don't necessarily, as a redevelopment commission representative, have an issue with putting that in there. I don't have that issue at all
Okay,
about retipping.
that's, I mean,
or adding additional
So
property.
that's the entire property, even the property on the other side of the creek.
That's my understanding is what they wanted to include in the TIF. Now, I'll let them
This should
talk
be
about
included
that.
in the TIF, I would think. That way they couldn't.
that's not in Greendale, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, that's not necessarily true because we can tip outside our boundaries.
Oh, you can? Huh. Too much I know. Government. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can limit it. That's my take on it. I have no problem with the 20-year, and I personally have no problem with 20, and I personally don't have a problem with, Mark, it was a good point putting that in there as far as the, no more retipping. And I don't think I would have a problem with that. I don't see them passing from past discussions that they're gonna pass in 15 years. And I think we all know that, and I get your point, I know you get your point, and points made, but I don't see it from the discussions we've had.
But
And
what was
you just,
presented to us, the TIF payoff was 11 years, 11 and a half years.
well, 13.
Years. So we're going 50% more basically. I mean, it's just.
Well, you're going 7 more years, but so the payoff's one thing, but then they gotta, recoup some of that money too, just like we gotta recoup some of ours down the road.
I'm just stating my feelings, Kevin.
Right, no, I get
We've
it.
got, and Mr. McLaughlin's here as president, so he kind of hears the discussion and
Mike and I have had.
and knows what our recommendation would be. We understand where you're at, but at least you hear the conversations of what we would like consideration for.
So,
So what I'm hearing within the agreement, I know that'll be coming up, but putting in no re-TIF, and then also, I think even if we say a 20-year TIF limit on there is kind of at least what we put language in there. I think those will be two things that if we could add to that agreement in there, Dell, if we could look at those two things on there. And then do you want, like a third thing, do you want to put like, I mean, no less than, or like when you were saying number of houses, I guess number of units.
I would like to see them build the development on what they proposed to us, which was 85 houses.
But what if it's more, but if they can put more
They
houses,
could put them in it once they go to another area.
can we ask, Mr. Canadian, do you mind sharing where you're at numbers wise on what you think you're looking at numbers of housing in the development right now?
Yes, right now, due to our latest design, it's right at 85 units.
Okay,
That could fluctuate a unit or two before final design's done. So, it could go down to 83, being worst case probably, looking at the way things are right now. It's just, final design could dictate a little bit of that, so, yeah.
so we say minimum of like even, do we want to say minimum of 82,
Yeah.
to give that flexibility? Would the board be okay if we set a minimum of 82?
I don't think, I don't know how you can do that though. What if I come in there and I want to buy 10 lots?
I don't know that they're gonna allow that for you to buy 10 lots.
I'm just saying.
Because they've got, as they explained in the presentation, if you buy 10 lots, you still gotta build
Yeah.
the houses within the time that's what they're giving you a time. You can't hold on to a lot for 10 years until you decide to retire and then build on. They've got the parameters that the agreement is that if you buy the lot within, it's like 6 months, you have to build your house. So if you're gonna buy 10 of them, then you're gonna agree to build 10 houses.
Well, one big house.
The way we're staging this project and the way it needs to go is, yes, you got a year to build on it. So, as of right now, because working through the channels and making sure that things work the way they need to for the project to work amongst all entities, so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And then as far as the question about the additional ground, across the creek, that was merely just, it would be a conversation another day. It's just, we don't want to close the door if there were going to be an opportunity some other time, but it's not something that we're looking at doing right now. It's just that we would be discussing that at a later date if there was that ever opportunity, so. Right?
Al, do you mind, on that, so wouldn't that be beneficial though to everybody if more houses could be put on it than less? That's why I think if we put like a minimum of 82, if we could get 85, 88, it's gonna benefit everybody because it's gonna be more tax money coming in if we could get that. That's why, I mean, I don't know that we wanna go too low,
But
but
you want to go that, where does it stop? You want little cracker box houses out there, you know?
well, I get it. I mean, but I think the way they've got the lots set up, they're looking at around that 85 number right now. So I don't know do we want language in there to say a minimum or not?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the two things that we're looking at is that no retipping and a 20-year tip limit would be two things to add into that language.
And I think this was discussed, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, it's obviously we need to be, but pending this board's approval and pending planning and zoning, to, I think, Mark, as your point, is I think the assumption was we would TIF that whole property that Casey owns. So the 85 house is just phase one, so there could be a phase 2 or 3, it could be much more. So I know somebody, I mean, when you said just that property, it's not, it is just that property, but it's more than just the development we're talking about right this. I want to make sure the school board is fully aware of that.
And Mike,
Yeah.
just to clarify though, so let's say phase 1, you build 80 homes in a 5-year period. Phase 2, there's no way that they go back and say, because it happened down at, down by La Rosa, they can't go back and re-tip it where it's like down to 17 years to re-tip it for 25 again. There's no way of that happening, correct?
Under current regulations, state statute, you can't. And I agree with Al, I don't think, I can't speak for the board, but I don't think the GRC board commission would have any problem in capping at it.
Yeah, as long as I don't see a problem.
Now, the developer could come back and ask for more funds from the GRC, but, you
It
know,
would still be within the same tip.
it'd still be within the same tip.
So
So it'll be 20 years period. because
Yeah, so if he
Or
finishes
5
those
acres.
off in 5 years,
Right.
and he wants more money, what we would look at our payback over 15 years.
Is it your concern that we would try to extend the length of the tip?
yes,
Okay. The answer to that would be no, and the idea is that any new award or request would be based on the new revenue coming from the new construction.
okay,
It wouldn't be extending out the tip. So if 5 years in, they want to start the other phase, then there's only 15 years of payback,
okay,
if that clarifies that.
it does. Anybody else have any other questions about this? I know it's been going back and forth a lot, so I just want to make sure everybody's clear before we decide on vote. All right, we got a favorable recommendation from Mr. Gailey. All those in favor, raise your hand. What do we got? 7-0. Thank you guys very much. Under new business, review and approval of the draft funding sharing agreement with Greendale Redevelopment Commission, GRC. Need a motion, please? Ms. Rybel, need a second? Mr. Miller? Mr. Gailey?
In your package, you have a draft that was put together by Mr. Weldon, and we've just asked him to add 2 additional items into there. Language about no re-tipping of the area within the HOTIF, and then also a 20-year TIF limit within there. Those will be 2 additions that we're requesting him to add in there. And then after he's finished with that, then if you wouldn't mind, if you want to share it with me and I can share it with the board, and also if we can share it with both Mr. Smart and Mr. Appleton, that'd be great.
All right. Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. Thank you. B, Greendale Redevelopment Commission, GRC, provides report pursuant to IC 36-7-25-8. Mr. Gailey.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Abden. We provided in your online packet, you have information was provided to us, the report, and then he also provided hard copies as well that I'm assuming that he is.
That has additional information.
Okay.
Those hard copies.
So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Abden. This is kind of their annual report that they provide, the Redevelopment Commission provides to the public entities, school boards being one of them. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And basically, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's basically an outline of what was done by the GRC in 2019. So these are obviously old numbers, but this is, the statute requires us to give this report to all entities that, all other taxing entities in the county. What we do is we invite all of those entities to one of our meetings. Mr. Daly couldn't make it to that meeting, so you're the only one that we have to present it to in person. And I guess, I mean, I could go through it line by line, but if you've already looked at it, I'll just open it for questions.
The only questions I sent an email was asking how do you go about, because it talks about what your mission is, and it talks about that you work diligently on projects to bring jobs to the area, improve quality of life in Greendale, and it has the list of some of those projects that are there. How do you go about assessing those number of jobs that are brought to these areas? Do you just go by, do they provide any kind of documentation to you on those numbers?
Yes, based on, and each one of these projects are different. They each have their own economic development agreement. So if I say EDA, that's what that means. But they each have their own EDA that is negotiated. When they come to us and fill out an application for assistance, we review that assistance request. We meet with them on multiple occasions. We hammer out the details of what we expect them to get in return for our contribution to their projects. The things that we really put heavy weight on are jobs, the amount of revenue they're going to bring back based on the amount of time left on the tip, and then just the overall benefit to the entire community on the project that they're proposing. One of those, for instance, is on your list is the Canine Country Club. And there was a need for boarding and grooming dogs in the area. There were a lot of employees from Hollywood and other businesses in our industrial park that liked the idea of doing that. So we basically donated an acre of land. We got a value to that acre of land. We did the numbers to see if we could get anything back on that acre of land over a period of the life of the existing tip. And basically it worked out to where we, it wasn't a big, and we're not a profit center anyway, basically, but it came out to be a good fit. So we gave them the $200,000 piece of land. And now it's built, up and running, and it's a pretty good asset for the community. But otherwise, to further answer that question, yes, we do. Based on those agreements, we'll have clawbacks, and we have we contact them when we're ready for information. They provide us based on the requirements in the EDA. Some of them we require certified payroll documents, or sometimes just a list of employees. You can walk in a place and see if they've got 30 employees, if that's what their numbers are. If their numbers are 100 employees, then you need more information. We have callbacks if the TIF revenue that comes in based on the projections that we do before we give them the award. We check each year to see if the revenue is matched, is at least as much as what was projected. If it's less than that, the callback is you have to make up the difference. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
That was gonna be a follow-up that I was gonna ask, is
we
if
have
they
clawbacks.
don't hit those marks, then what is that, okay?
We have callbacks in every one of our EDAs. Some of them we can do more. It'd be nice if we could get a first position on a mortgage on every one of them. We've been fortunate to get it on our biggest one just recently, and we've had other ones in the past, but we're usually in a lesser position than first position, but it's usually layered clawbacks. And we get as much as we can get out of them and still make the project work.
Thank you. That's the only question I have.
Any other questions?
The one I got, when are you gonna get a cart path down to Lawrenceburg for us?
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Phase one has been, just to give you an update on that. Phase one, it just goes to the top of the levee on the ridge and goes down the other side. That's already been funded. It's in the design phase. The first approvals have been done by the Conservancy District. Then the final design goes back to them. If they approve it, it goes to the Corps of Engineers. And then if it's approved, we'll hopefully break ground in the spring.
Good. Good.
But the next phase, hopefully, will be on the other side of that levee to get to Lawrenceburg.
We
If
hope
there's enough support for it.
there is some of them. All right.
Anybody else?
Anybody else got any questions? No. Thank you guys very
Thanks,
much.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks for working with us, and Mike, thanks. We appreciate it, guys. All right, next approval of finalization contracts for Lancer Plus BB LLC and Maxwell Construction. I need a motion, Mr. Johnson. I need a second. Ms. Nance. Mr. Gailey.
Included in your packet, you have 3 documents there that would pertain to Lancer Plus BB and Maxwell Construction. I know that Mr. Weldon has been working with them on those, as well as, I apologize, it was a Swagger Drinker, weren't you working with them as well on this a little bit too? That they were helping with these contracts and reviewing them. So if you have questions, Mr. Weldon's here to be able to answer any questions that you may have. But I believe these are in final format for approval. Is that correct, Mr. Weldon?
Yes, sir, Mr. Gailey. It is. The contracts that you can see in your packets are, they're one contract for the architect Lancer Plus BV, 2 contracts, 1 contract for the construction manager, and then the A201 is the general terms and provisions that apply to the architect, construction manager, and subcontractors. All 3 of those documents have been negotiated between the parties, reviewed by, like Mr. Gailey said, contracts attorney, construction contract attorney at Faker Drinker, and then those fee numbers were changed pursuant to the votes that occurred at the last meeting, of course, changes that were made. I would ask you just to primarily focus, look at all of it, of course, and what you'll see in the documents are the AIA, which, as everyone knows, is a generic construction documents, and then in gray, you'll see where areas have been edited or changed, and then there's an additions and deletions report on each of these documents. hopefully that was kind of clear. They can get lengthy and complicated, but those are the changes that we made, again, pursuant to negotiations and the will and desire of the board. There are 2 exhibits. Exhibit A is going to eventually be our GMP, which is our guaranteed maximum price, and also our start date and substantial completion date. That will occur at a later date, and that's the intention of a construction manager as a constructor type project that we've selected to use for our benefit, for whatever it's worth. I think that's already paid off greatly because we have been able to identify improvements that we can make to this project even before the construction phase. So remember, as opposed to a design build project, we were able to implement a scenario where the construction manager was selected on the front end, working in tandem with the board, of course, and the architect. And as we saw, we've already seen substantial improvements to make. So I think it's already paid off a great deal. The next steps would be to proceed to design development after we approve the contracts, or if there are any changes the board wishes to make, then we would proceed to construction documents, to bids, and then start the project. The GMP with, again, the start date and the substantial completion date would then occur as an amendment to the contract. We are still in pre-construction phase, and so the fees that you see and the costs that you see are broken into pre-construction and construction for Maxwell, who we selected as our construction manager. And I do have at least one item specifically that I'd like to discuss, but I'll turn it over to you guys for a question before I do that.
Anybody have any questions over here? And then I'll go right to Mark.
Just so I'm clear here, in section 12 dispute resolution, up to $250,000 is binding arbitration. After that, it's in Dearborn County Superior Court, not federal court, correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Kniggett. Pursuant to the experiences that we've had as a board, even in my limited time here, it seemed prudent to, rather than have a generic mediation provision or a litigation provision, to prescribe that arbitration is binding and is a way to be more efficient with dispute resolution up to a certain point. So through some kind of spitballing and running this by people who've done contracts a lot for a living, we were able to kind of settle at a $250,000 threshold. So these smaller monetary disputes can be resolved quickly with binding arbitration, save everyone a lot of money and time. And then if it's more than $250,000, then it would proceed to litigation. But as Mr. Koenig has stated, we would control the venue, would not proceed to federal court, which has happened before.
And I hope none of this happens, but I don't recall seeing any verbiage in here where selection of the arbitrator who determined that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Koenig. So we did consider that, and rather than leaving that totally up to the parties, you'll see in that provision that an arbitrator who is a member of the 2 generally accepted organizations for arbitrators. So that ensures that it's not just a random attorney or a random person that works in this field, that it is something that is someone who is board certified to ensure that everyone gets a fair shake.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else with any other questions? Ms. Weldon?
So the one provision that is still up in the air is that of liquidated damages, which of course is something that we've experienced firsthand. What we have in the current iteration of these contracts is a $1,000 per day liquidated damages, which is what we had with the last contract, and ended up being kind of the focus of what we focused on after the fact. But as in terms of, again, being able to kind of control our destiny a little bit better here, while we included $1,000 per day, I've had substantial talks with Maxwell, and Jeff and Ryan are here tonight to maybe add to this a little bit better than I can. But just in general, Jeff felt strongly, and Jeff and Ryan have been terrific to work with, by the way, and so it's Terry, But they felt strongly that $1,000 a day could actually cost us money in the long run. And so the kind of philosophy behind that, and Jeff has actually kind of put that to the test. He was able to reach out to some of the subcontractors in another project, but essentially having a $500 a day liquidated damages provision rather than a $1,000 a day liquidated damages provision would be, after consulting with them, what I would recommend and what they would recommend. And the reason for that is that there are some subcontractors that would not bid on the project or would actually increase their bid to cover the risk associated with having $1,000 versus $500. Again, Mr. Linus and his team, they were able to actually talk to subcontractors on another project to put this to the test, and they got responses that said it wouldn't matter, and they got responses that said maybe it would matter, and they got responses that said, yeah, we would definitely add to our cost. And then, of course, that cost gets passed on to us. So it is worth considering, I think, because, you know, we do want to be the masters of our destiny in terms of setting the stage for this project. And I'll let you guys kind of ask those questions of Jeff and Ryan. But again, one of the most important things to consider is that because we are approaching this project as construction manager, as constructor, we have a construction manager involved in pre-construction phase. The entire point of doing that is to have this tighter financial schedule and tighter timeline and actually a guaranteed maximum price. So while no one can guarantee that the project won't be completed late, on the one hand, we still have an ability to recover, and it would be $500 a day versus $1,000 a day, granted. But on the other hand, if we're seeking to accomplish our overall goal, which is to get the very best numbers we can, then it is worth at least considering what Jeff and Ryan are saying about the potential to either scare away bidders or increase the cost of bids. So that's kind of the one item I would like the board to just consider individually.
You got a question, Brian?
Yeah, what's a normal, a daily rate? Or if it's not completed?
Yeah, Jeff, if you want, we can come to the podium and just, and I think what Jeff's gonna say is, you know, we can kind of pick, but he's seeing, you know, what's a good rate and what's too high and what's maybe even too low, so.
Thanks, Mr. Miller.
You're welcome.
Jeff Linus with Maxwell Construction. There's not really a normal rate. I mean, we've been on projects where nothing to 250 to 500 to 1,000. It kind of goes with complexity, scope. You know, what drives that certain date? You know, if you're working for possibly an Argosy or, you know, some other local business that has a deadline opening date, you know, those things come into play. So there's really no definite set number. On any construction project, as a contractor or subcontractor working on the job, you assess the risk. You know, we're in this business to look at the risk and bid accordingly based on the risk. And when there's $1,000 a day liquidated damage, then you have to assess that risk and put your overhead markup structure to, you know, feel confident that we're going to meet the target and no problem. Or if there's a little bit of risk there, we've got to cover our costs to be able to deal with that liquidated damage. And in this case, the team is not set. You know, we are construction managers, you guys are owners, but there's a bid process that has to be done and a little bit scenario that plays out. And then the team members, being the subcontractors, are all then together. And before the bid process, you're looking at the people on the list of bidders, and it could be any of those that you know, some electrician's got to work with an HVAC setup. It's got to work for a flooring guy. It has to work with a ceiling guy. And so those all come into play. And like Dale said before, different people are going to have different risk assessments of the job. If you're doing flooring, you have a different risk assessment than a guy doing mechanical that takes a lot more guys and a lot more time frame to get done. So I didn't really give you the answer you're probably looking for, but I tried to explain it.
We've had some bad experiences over the last couple of years. Things that extended well, you know, they pulled, like our rookie job, they pulled guys off and go down to Louisville. or whatever like that, where they can finish a big job down there first.
Just,
But, and the school's not out to make money off of it by all means. I mean, we just put it done on the time and
for
like everybody
Maxwell,
else.
for Maxwell Construction side, we are fine with $1,000 liquidated damage. Like, because we don't have a contract that's set up to pass those burdens down to some of the subcontractors working on the job. And ultimately, if there is one that kind of holds things up, you know, it'll be a shared responsibility amongst the group. But again, I want to advise you that I think at the end of the day, I can't tell you how much more money it will cost to have that in place, but I think it'll cost more money for you as a organization in order to have those in place. So that's why I discussed it with Dell and just want to bring it to your attention. The other thing with this process in the CNC role that's different than the past setup is we have the ability to pre-qualify tier one subcontractors. So when we have a bid package for just, you know, the different trades, let's just take HVAC, electric, we will have a process where we have to come back to you as a board and we will present, you know, a list of items that are important goals. And that'll give us the ability, if you guys approve that, to go through a pre-qualification package, the process, or pre-qualification process, so that the subcontractors wishing to bid on a trade package within the school system have to send in their qualifications to us as a construction manager. And we get to go through that and say you qualify or you don't. And part of that history is past performance on a similar sized job. Have you met schedule and met your commitments with that? So that's another level of differentiation between the old way you guys have had projects in the past that you guys are trying to protect that doesn't happen again, versus going this route and doing it with us at the CNC.
And then, Mr. James, to answer your question, you know, you in the private sector, you could see liquidated damages $2,000 or even higher. And, you know, the idea of making, you know, the completion date be the end all be all is not necessarily, especially in a municipal setting, you know, it doesn't behoove us for that to be a primary goal. And what we'll see is, you know, with the GMP, we're going to have a completion date. You know, that schedule is very much in place. But again, I think we've received a great benefit from being able to reassess and reevaluate, you know, the scope and to take care of some things that are going to pay off in a big way for the school down the road. And the reason you'll see really high liquidated damages provisions in private sector is because it's, you know, get this done, come heck or high water, it doesn't matter. But then you're also paying a lot more for that. This project can be done whenever you want if you're willing to pay double, triple, quadruple. So again, what I would say, just from my perspective, whatever it's worth, is that the work you're doing now to make sure that, like Mr. Linus said, instead of just bidding, taking the low bid, you know, we can pre-qualify, we can have tier one, we can get pretty far down with design drawings before we even go to bid. We've got Maxwell here with us in addition to just having our architect. That's where you're building in your efficiencies, really building them in on the front end.
I mean, I can't speak for the whole board, but myself, I'd rather see it all done right, take a little bit extra time than what, come back 5 years from now and then have to go back to redo it or something like that.
Ms. Kanaga?
I'm not against all that.
Mr. Lyons, if we get to the situation with LPs, nobody wins. I mean, that's something we want to totally avoid. You know, we charged you with bringing the project in on time and budget. And I think the reason there's a lot of hesitancy is because there's going to be surprises. There's going to be surprises over there, and we know that. And if we don't think so, we're kidding ourselves. But what really upset the apple cart was on the previous one where we, I think what I'm going to say here, where we really had a bad experience. There was no effort. I mean, I can probably speak with 100% certainty. If there was some effort put forward on the last situation we had, we probably wouldn't have went the route we went. But like Brian was saying, they pulled guys out. I mean, if they were there actually trying to get the job done and facing issues and things, we probably never would have went that route. So like I say, we get the LDs, nobody wins, but hopefully, I'm very confident you can make sure that that does not happen. And specifically on $500 a day or $1,000, I've seen as high as $20,000 a day. But then you go back to what Mr. Weldon said, it's very hard to enforce. So it's kind of one of those catch-22s. That's what I'm expecting from Linus and Maxwell, and the whole subcontracting team and the board as well.
Right, so basically, the recommendation then from our attorney is approve it, but with a $500 per day instead of $1,000 per day LD. So, Brian, you made a motion of approving this. Would you make a motion with it? Instead?
Yes.
Okay, so Brian is making his motion is going to be approval of the finalization contracts for Lancer Plus PB LLC and Maxwell Construction, but with what Dell said, instead of $1,000 to $500 a day liquidate damages. Bailey, you seconded. Are you okay with that? Second that at 500 instead of 1,000. Okay, so with it being 500, so everything else is good. Dell, thank you very much. Thank you. I got a first and second. Everybody, all those in favor, raise your hand, please. 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you for Jeff Ryan for being here and working with Dell through it, so thank you.
All right, the first reading discussion of the 2021-2022 draft school year calendar, informational only. You guys all seen that? I guess, Mr. Gilly, you want to talk about anything important on that?
No, I want to thank Mr. Miller for picking out last night, finding that I had for the fall break 2020 instead of 2021, so thank you for catching that for me. But I did update that today in the packet, so it's updated there with 2021 listed as the date for fall break. Outside of that, this pretty much mirrors this current year's schedule with start date there, first week of August. You have just over 1 week for fall break, going through 2 weeks for winter break, and then going through normally 2 weeks spring break unless we need to use them for snow makeup days. And that finishes us right before the Friday before Memorial Day. So it mirrors this month or this year.
Great. Any questions or concerns? Bob, thank you for being hawk-eyed on that. All right.
So I'll bring that back next month. If you do see anything or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Next, acceptance of the $2,000 donation to neediest kids of all on behalf of GMS. Need a motion, please? Mr. Jansen, I need a second. Mr. Kniga. Mr. Gailey.
Included in your packet is a donation, $2,000 from neediest kids of all. Last year, they made a $1,000 donation to Central Elementary School. This is used around the holiday seasons to help students and families. And our policy is anything over $1,000 has to be accepted by the board.
Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0, thank you. Approval Southeastern Indiana School Insurance Trust Agreement. Need a motion, please? Ms. Rybold, need a second. Mr. Miller. Mr. Gailey.
You have included in your packet from Bose, McKinney & Evans, law firm out of Indianapolis. They're representing our Southeastern Indiana School Insurance Trust. I'd have to look at how many corporations we're up to now. I believe there are approximately about 15 school corporations that participate in the trust. And we are at a point where we're large enough and we have enough reserves that we are able to declare MEWA status, which allows us, when we go in to negotiate with companies like Anthem for medical insurance, we can break apart the prescription drugs, so we don't have to bid it all at the same time. So by bidding that separately, it then allows us to get better bids and more competitive bids and keeps companies like Anthem a little more honest with us, which this year resulted in a 0% increase to our insurance rates for the consortium, which was exciting. So I would recommend approval of this agreement.
All right, any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0, thank you. Approval to declare obsolete and dispose of old hotspots. Asset tag number A00489270, A00489271, A00489273, and A00489274. Need a motion, please? Ms. Nance, I need a second, please. Mr. Jansen? Mr. Gailey?
I think it's self-explanatory. I declare them obsolete and dispose of as they're not
Gavin,
working.
you can pick those up.
If you want them, you're welcome to try them.
All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. H, new EOLA policy, volume 32, number 1, it's first reading. The second reading and consideration for adoption will be on November 9th, 2020. We can go through each one, or how do you guys?
I'll wait for you. Just take them as presented.
Take them as presented? All right. So Carl, need to read through all that then, right?
You don't have to for H and I for the revised, but for J, we may want to read titles of the revised EOLA policies that you'll be taking a motion to vote on.
All right. J, approval of revised EOLA policies, volume 32, number 1.
If you want to read, you can probably read the numbers versus all of them.
Yeah. Number 2370.05, number.
You got to go back and flip over your page.
Oh my gosh.
There you go.
Never mind, I didn't see all these. Number 1520, number 1520.08, number 3120.08, number 3220.02, number 4120.08, number 5111.01, number 5223, number 5335, number 5600, number 5610, number 6220, number 6230, number 6520, number 7300, number 8120, number 8310, number 8400, number 8405, number 8420, number 8455, number 8462. Anybody have any oxygen?
Do you have a motion?
Oh my gosh, I need a motion, please. Ms. Nance, I need a second, please. Mr. Kennega.
Could you reread those? Can you read that over since we didn't most of it? Yeah, I'd like for you to read it over.
If y'all would like, I could read them all, and also if they help, we could read every one of them. You all have about 20 hours. All those in favor?
The only, before you do go, I do want to point out, there is one number 10, which is 5610 suspensions and expulsions. I put this in your memo in your packets, is that the recommendation is for the board not to hear appeals, for it to go directly to the circuit court. And I just want to make sure the board is okay with that, that if there was an appeal, it would go to the circuit court and not to the board. So that's why I want to make sure.
This is just the first reading. I'll be honest with you, I didn't have time to read all this. I mean, there was a lot of reading.
This just the first reading of
No, this is not. These are revisions. So these, that's what I'm saying. On J, these 21 are revisions, not first readings. I would recommend that because it's not the only thing that's going to happen if it goes to the circuit court. What the circuit court's going to look at is, did our administrators follow all the processes of the policies that we have set in place? So if they follow 5610 in the procedures, then most likely the court is not going to question the decision that is granted. They are only going to ding us if we messed up in the procedures, is what it would be.
That's what you're there for, is to make sure the process is.
I hope, yes.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? All right. Got a first and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. Thank you, guys. K, new EOLA policy, volume 32, Number 2, first reading, second reading, and consideration for adoption will be on November 9th, 2020.
For 3120.11.
For 3120.11. And then revised Neola bylaws, volume 32, number 2, first reading, second reading, consideration for adoption will be on November 9th, number 0154. M, technical corrections, Neola bylaws, volume 32, number 2, first reading, second reading, considered for adoption will be on November 9th, 2020, is number 0151. N, approval of revised Neola policy, volume 32, number 2, number 5111, number 5460, number 6105, number 7540.02, number 8330, and number 8450. I need a motion on N.
6 policies.
6 policies there. I need a motion, please. Ms. Rybel, second, Mr. Miller. Any questions, Mr. Gailey?
I don't have anything specific to point out of those.
Okay, great. Any questions, concerns? Looks like we bored everybody. The audience pretty much left. All those in favor, raise your hand. I don't blame you. All right.
What was it?
7-0, yes. New policy special update, first reading, second reading, and consideration for adoption will be on November 9th, 2020. Number 2370.05, number 8450.01. P, approval of replacement policies, special updates, volume 32, number 2. Number 4162. Revised bylaws, special update, continue operations. Having COVID-19, first reading, second reading, consideration for adoption will be November 9th, 2020. Number 0164.4, number 0165, number 0167.1, number 0167.3. R, new policy, special updates, continue operations. Having COVID-19, first reading, second reading, consideration for adoption will be November 9th, 2020. Number 8415, number 8416. S, approval of revised Neola policy special update, number 3220.01, teacher appreciation grants. I need a motion on that. Ms. Rybel, need a second. Mr. Jansen. All right. Any thing on that, Carl?
No,
All right.
big change with that one.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. 7-0. All right, so just so he knows, I just got a text from Mr. Ryan Kaniga and Mr. Zane White. They'd like to thank the board, Mr. Gailey, for the purchase of the new driver ed cars. Thanks to driver instructors, Ryan and Zane. So that was nice. All right. Now we've got citizen participation. Anybody in the audience would like to come up and address the board, please come up to the podium, state your name and the purpose of your talk. All right. Superintendent comments, Mr. Gailey.
Short and sweet. We are back. We made it through the first 9 weeks, 41 school days. So we're excited to make it through the first 9 weeks with very little disruptions. We are looking to start the second 9 weeks today in the same fashion. So our goals are to make it to Thanksgiving and Christmas and finish the first semester. I want to thank all of our staff and our administrative team for a successful first 9 weeks and start of the second 9 weeks, and we will continue rolling.
Awesome. It's not in here, but I am going to ask if there's any administrators. I'll start off with Ms. Spade. Is there anything you'd like to say?
4 hours
Great, I'm glad you didn't have anything to say. All right, next, Mrs. Cannell.
I echo what she said as well. Really appreciate our staff and everything that they've done. Today was a busy first day. Our fourth grade basketball for boys had their first little tryout today. We started our canned food drive, which the high school is really organizing, but it's K-12. College Go Week, and Mrs. Schmart does a great job talking about all sorts of careers, not just those that have a college degree, but she does the trades as well. But we are encouraging kids to dress up in their favorite college attire for that. So I'm representing Indiana State today.
Great, thank you. Ms. Herbert.
Yes, I wanted to recognize we had some very successful volleyball, football, and cross-country seasons. And again, thanks to all the participants for doing what they needed to do to be able to stay active. Our 8th grade volleyball and football both had successful seasons, and the volleyball won the tournament, and the football won against Seven Dearborn, so they were excited about that. Report cards, as everybody said, we're finishing up first quarter, so we're super excited that we made it, and teachers will be offering conferences. They've already been putting in the newsletters, and then they'll be reaching out specifically to students who've been struggling. We want to thank Chris and Carol and Debbie for their long service at GMS. We are sad to see them go, but I'm excited for them as well. And as everybody has said, thanks to all of our staff, our students, and our families for their hard work for the first quarter, as well as the flexibility that it took to get through the first quarter, and we're going to continue to work as a team. Look forward to hearing about the earthquake drills this week. So reminder, admin team, don't forget 10:15 on 10:15. And as Ms. Kaniga said, we do have the food drive, so if you would like to make any donations to GMS, we will gladly accept them since it is a competition. And GMS has beat the high school every year that we've done this, so the high school had to bring in LPS and CES to try and dethrone us. College Go Week was a great week right before fall break, and then we are looking forward to hunting some Sasquatches during Red Ribbon Week. Any questions?
No, any questions? All right, no, thank you very much. Next, Mr. Snyder.
The College Go Week was done very, very well by our guidance department. Very successful, large number of applications went out, driven by our on-the-wall ceremony, which has got more on the wall than any previous year. Announcements are just all over the place dealing with it, the kids really. But we've also expanded it, not just to college. We're interested in students who've got careers, students that have got achievements going on now. So we want to also make sure that we're concentrating on careers as well as the college atmosphere. And guidance is doing excellent at that. And now they can't rest on their laurels, because now we're on the PSAT, getting that prepared. That's huge for us now, getting those students ready for those types of tests, especially with the importance of the SAT, ACT for us in the future. From there, want to mention also, I don't want to steal any much thunder. I know that Ashton's got some things to mention about student council, but I can't go far enough without saying everything great about our extracurriculars. Our teams just did exceptionally well with all the challenges that they had. Starting with our cross-country team, Cindy Brenner's now the regional. Our golf team, as you know, went on to regional. Our tennis team advanced well in both the conference and the sectional. And of course, you all know our soccer teams did. So excellent there. Want to wish Stacy good luck for volleyball sectionals this week. I know we'll be exceptionally well represented in that. And of course, football sectional rankings are already out as far as who's playing who. So we're just extremely excited about how well the kids are doing and how they're carrying on. And it's as good almost to normal as you can have.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Gregory?
We're just really lucky at LCSC to have such a great PTO, and we kicked off the PTO Tiger Cash Club today, We have a restaurant night on Wednesday at the Grand Buffet with Kevin Wayne. And on the 16th, we start handing out some prizes from the walkathon. Our walkathon this year raised a record number $6,000, which was amazing. We're also gearing up for parent-teacher conferences. The 19th through 23rd is National School Bus Safety Week. We have School Smiles coming on the 27th, which offers like the mobile dentist feature for families. And then the last week, we also look forward to Red River Week and celebrating that week, the 26th through the 30th. And we're super excited about the Camp Food Drive. And we just want all the other schools to know that you offer a pizza party as an award. LPS is going to bring it. So you're in this competition too.
Great, thank you. Ms. Lorton, our student rep.
I just want to kind of touch on a few things that we're going to do in October. So the thing, like it's come up, World Food Day is this Friday. Typically, the student council would go to any really canned food station anywhere in Lawrenceburg, even Aurora, and we would volunteer. But because of COVID, we don't want anything like getting contaminated or whatever. So we're not going to be doing that this year, but we are doing a contest with the schools. The school that brings in the most cans will get a plaque for their school, and then the class that brings in the most cans in each school will get a pizza party. Additionally, Red River Week, we're gearing up for that the last week of October. The Hawksworth Blood Drive is on October 20th this year. It will not be located in the Ox Gym, though. They will be pulling the trailer out onto the plaza area, and we'll be doing it out there. So if any of you guys are interested in signing up for that, feel free to email myself or Mrs. Lusk, and we'll take care of it for you. And lastly, we're doing a soft drive as well as shampoo and conditioner drive sometime between World Food Day as well as like Red Ribbon Week, somewhere between that time. And that was just us collecting exactly what it sounds, swaps, shampoo, conditioner for those less fortunate. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Great, thank you, and I'm glad you got your voice back earlier. It was a little raspy when you first talked.
Yeah, sorry, I was on a call with my little for Big Brother's business.
No worries. All right, board comments. Let's start with Mr. Miller.
No comment.
All right. Ms. Rybold.
No comment.
Mr. Jansen.
No comment.
Awesome. Mr. Johnson.
No comment.
Mr. Kaniga.
Well, I'd like to congratulate Chris, Debbie, and Carolyn on the years of service, wish them well in retirement, and congratulations to all the athletic teams that have already went on and the ones that are coming up here in the next couple of weeks. And thank you, everyone, for everything you did during the first 9-week break period. Hopefully we get through some more. Thank you.
Great. Ms. Nance.
Ditto, Mr. Kaniga, and also President Trump even acknowledged on TV that Indiana was doing a wonderful job reopening, so.
All right. Ditto to what everybody said, and administrators, thank you all very, very much. And please pass it on to all your everybody in the schools that we appreciate everything they've done the first 9 weeks, and hopefully we can continue on all school year with it. Thank you all, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, guys.
Well, got anything to say?
Wow. Is anybody else think that meeting lasted forever?